So in section two, we spent a lot of time talking about the Pilgrims and the Puritans. The Pilgrims and the Puritans used to live in England, but then they decided to leave for the New World because they were worried about religious persecution, which just means people who are killed or are harmed because of their religious beliefs. Right, so when they got there, they were they were excited because their goal was not to stop believing in their religion, but they did not like the way the Church of England was handling things. So they wanted to purify the Anglican Church. Right? So when they got there, their whole goal was to start a new world with a new government where they were able to purify the church that they once were from, so that hopefully one day they could go back with their newer, better version of the church. But when they were there, most people who came from England and came to the New World, most of the colonists were farmers. And in the New England colonies, all of the soil, or most of the soil, was rocky and harsh, which made it very hard for them to farm. Which, like I said, was a big problem because most of them were farmers. That was the trade that they knew and the skills that they already had. So then in the New England colonies, it became more and more important that people learned skilled trades. Right? Skilled trades are things like blacksmiths, um, teachers, weavers, right? Anybody who gets very good at one specific thing, and then they do that over and over again as their job. In the New England colonies, they finally started sending kids to school. So children would go off to school in the day, and they would mainly learn from this book called The New England Primer. The stories that were mainly in the New England Primer were mainly stories from the Bible, because most of the reason why they even wanted their children in school was so that they could learn how to read, so that their children could also read the Bible. But then there was a bit of an issue because a lot of the people who left England to purify the church had a really big problem with the fact that a lot of their government officials were also the church leaders, and they wanted them to be different. Right? They didn't want the person who was handling their government to be the same as the person who was their leader at the church. So then when they get to the colonies, they kind of started to repeat these same mistakes, and they started making their own government that was almost entirely full of church officials again. And some people didn't like this. And that's why people like Thomas Hooker and Roger Williams ended up leaving and starting whole new colonies. Okay, for this section, what you're going to do is you're going to see a screen that looks a little like this. And when you get the screen, you're going to have this for slides 5 all the way through slide 11. You're going to read or use Google Read and Write to read the question. So for this one, it says, the Pilgrims and Puritans came to the New World to avoid, there are two options. So they either came to the world to avoid, in the New World to avoid religious persecution, which means being killed for your religious beliefs, or the hard weather in England, right? When you choose which one that you think is correct, you're going to take this yellow arrow and you're going to drag it either next to religious persecution or next to the English weather. Okay, that's how I'll know which answer you picked. Oh. Okay, good luck.